Hello, I'm Jake Allen Graham. I'm reviewing the first 2000 movie to Fox's X-Men era of X-Men, titled X-Men. I give it an 8 out of 10. Now, I want to say I enjoyed this movie for what it was. A realistic, mediocre take on the X-Men by Fox. I say mediocre just because the story feels mediocrely rushed for a 2000s era movie. Kind of like it's kind of not that it's as bad. It's rushed like but in a fun bonkers over not until bonkers rush pacing all over the place. The first X-Men movie, which is strange because at the beginning is like the first half at least, at least the first half of the hour of the movie, the first act of the movie, in the first two acts of the movie was um the first hour of the first half of the movie. It feels like it's nicely paced, but the rest of the half, it feels like as after a certain point, it feels like it's trying to get quicker and quicker to the end. Like I don't know why it feels like that way. As it gets closer to the end of the movie, it feels like it's trying to rush the movie quicker. Like, I feel like this movie could have really benefited from a director's cut that never came. Like, it would have been nice to get some more interactions with the X-Men. Wolverine interacting with the X-Men in this movie before heading into battle and teaming up with X-Men and becoming an X-Men member. Like, it would be nice if we had more of a character story with this take on the realistic take on the X-Men. And it would be nice to we got more fleshed screen time with these X-Men. Besides this, more screen time with Wolverine. We would nice to give more screen time with all the X-Men besides this Wolverine. But it's good fucking uh action scenes with these X-Men, seeing interaction with these X-Men moments in the movie. For they have with Cyclops and Jean and Storm and Wolverine. Is that 4 or 5 X-Men characters? That's 4. 1 X-Men, Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, Jean. Oh, Xavier, but he's handicapped. But he has like telekinesis, he can get in people's head and read people's minds, and use Cerebro in this, a realistic take on Cerebro, cool reimagining version of Cerebro. And and cool reimaginings of the costumes from the comics instead of the tights being individuals tights. They are just black tights that leather jumpsuits. Which, to be fair, they look silly either way in the comics and in the movie, so I don't know why they went with a realistic approach if they couldn't make the comic make something not look silly. Like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine comments on how silly the uniforms look in the world of the X realistic world of the X-Men. So it makes you wonder if they're going to make them look silly, why not just go for the comic book costumes anyway? If they're going to make them look stupid looking and have Hugh Jackman, Wolverine was in content, we poke fun of how silly the X-Men uniforms are. I'm confused over that decision-making, filmmaking perspective. Still, the costumes aren't bad. They're cool for what they are. They still look stupid, but X-Men look stupid when they was the costumes are supposed to look stupid for superheroes because they're made up fantasy characters from imagination land. So I mean, they look. It's okay if they look like they look stupid, but it's like it's okay. They have this they have look stupid to some level. They have to look stupid and ridiculous to some level because that's kind of the thing about superhero comics costumes. They're supposed to look a little stupid because they're not they're not because it is like a little silly looking costume. The costumes are supposed to look silly. That's kind of the thing of superhero comics that they go for those costumes, and it's kind of weird how they went with realistic take on X-Men, yet they still try to do some form of X-Men costumes, uniforms, in which I find that a little strange decision filmmaking perspective. Like it's almost like trying to please a certain um it's like trying to feel like it's trying to please the um more of the average moviegoer, but it's really just another. It's disguised to be a. It feels like this first X movie feels like it's disguised to be this average moviegoer movie sci-fi experience with the X-Men. That's more realistic take of the X-Men because it doesn't look anything like the X-Men from the comics. Because they don't, none of the X-Men wear individual costumes that are colorful. They wear the same costumes. They're black leather jumpsuits. That was a lot different than anything we got from the X-Men in the early 2000s. Before in history, including in comics, and the Ultimate X-Men comic run from the Ultimate Universe kind of took inspiration from the Fox design, aesthetic design, where the costumes don't look anything like the X-Men. They look more like the Fox design characters designed. Was everything like one dressed in black and in jumpsuits and stuff. And but the thing is, despite it just being disguised of like a realistic take on the X-Men with the aesthetic design, it still feels too almost too comic booky and fiction, and has too much of fantasy elements from the X-Men you know and love from the cartoons, the '90s show, and also the comics. But it and also like it has all these so it's like kind of like it kind of feels like a mixed hybrid of comic book logic mixed with realistic aesthetics with this X-Men movie from the 2000s, what they try to do. And I think that's why I don't end up hating this movie. I end up pretty much enjoying this movie. But I kind of rather just have the real X-Men from the comics to me, from the X-Men anime series or any of the X-Men from the past, whatever the were in the past incarnations of the comics that outside of X-Men the anime series, and so uh, I know they wear multiple different designs in the comics from different generations. Depending on which one you read of the X-Men, they have different costumes, and sometimes in the beginning they have matching costumes that were matching bright yellow jumpsuits that's described as a joke by Cyclops in the 2000 X-Men movie and pulled as a joke. Just like for just like you're trying this for to make the audience laugh by shitting on the source material that you're trying your target both demographics. It seems like the ones that are fans of the source material and fans of the newcomers that want more realistic take on the X-Men. That never seen the X-Men before, but so the more used to this more realistic aesthetic look of the X-Men. It's nothing like the look cooking like the comics or any X-Men comics from before uh, this movie happened. The X-Men never looks like that in any comics. Like the Ultimate Comics of X-Men run from the Ultimate Universe looks similar in terms of aesthetic designs, with the everyone dressing in black and the realistic look on X-Men instead of them dressing in unique uniforms that are colorful. And what I'm trying to say is I didn't really care for it, the aesthetic look. I care for the comic book's absurd story that they told with these characters. I end up liking these takes on the characters, but I did not care for the aesthetic changes for the X-Men, for the villain, for the main X-Men actually. For the villains, they work fine, but for the X-Men, they all dress the same, so I guess they didn't work fine because they all dress like in the same uniforms, but they're black uniforms instead of their yellow jumpsuit uniforms from the comics that they were in the earlier debut issues before Logan joined the X-Men in the comics. Wolverine, known as, who plays Hugh Jackman in this movie. This was the movie that made him big, so. And I liked his performance in this movie, but I felt like he wasn't given a whole lot in the movie to say, to flesh out his character, and give him a character arc. But it felt like a short character arc. It was him joining the X-Men and coming to, but his relationship and bonding with Rogue felt a little short, but believable of a story and different take for Rogue and Wolverine. And the story they told for this version of Rogue and Wolverine, I end up enjoying it. Okay. Um, and I thought it was weird how at the end of the movie, Rogue ended up keeping her comic book look hairdo from the comics, where it has a bit of a uh, white in her hair on the sides, and she thinks she looks cute like that. And so, I mean, she does, but I mean, it's kind of weird how she doesn't get her own costume like she did in the anime series or in any other X-Men. It's just that, like, you gave her like a nod to a comic book look with her hair. Why not just go for a costume with her, or it was like um, I thought it was a little strange. I guess what I'm trying to say is I never cared for the aesthetic. There's different changes, designs with the heroes outside of Xavier. I mean, Xavier, like his realistic take on Xavier. He looks okay. I mean, his design looks like it looks actually cool. I do think it's like cool how he just moves his wheelchair without touching the without like I guess he uses powers to move the wheelchair because he doesn't use his hands and it's not an electric wheelchair, so I guess he uses his powers to move the wheelchair. So I thought that was kind of cool. Uh, and I like that his performance was cool. He plays played by what's his the actor's name, Patrick something. He played he was in Star Trek Next Generation show. He played the captain on that show. And played Ebenezer Scrooge one time in A Christmas Carol. I haven't seen that movie, the whole thing. I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen the trailers to that movie, I think. Um, I believe, I haven't seen that, but want to see that movie, okay? And he's good as Xavier. To me, I think he steals the show in the movie, overshadows Hugh Jackman's performance as Wolverine easily, in my opinion, personally. To me, he's more of a likable, more complex, well-developed character than any of the team on the X-Men. And by the end of this movie, for his take on Charles Xavier, and I really liked his take on Charles Xavier in this movie. His performance alone is actually worse, and the scenes he's given with his performance and dialogue he's given with his character is alone a 10 out of 10 worst scene in the movie. I gotta say, I almost want to give it a 10 out of 10 for that reason alone, because his take on Charles Xavier is that good. And also, let's talk about Mystique and Magneto. The real to take on Fox Magneto and Mystique. I adore the characters of Mystique, the sexy, cold-blooded killer, blue shapeshifter Mystique. That is naked in this Fox reimagining of the X-Men, and I do not mind that design. It's actually become my favorite design, even more than X-Men the Animated Series design of Mystique. Personally, it's my favorite design of Mystique ever. Definitely better than the comic book design of Mystique. That's just my opinion, though. But that's mostly because she doesn't have any clothes on. Fox Mystique versus comic book Mystique. Comic book Mystique has clothes on. But I don't mind the change. I thought it was a very sexy yet realistic take on Mystique change that they went for. And they gave her scales to shapeshift with, so that was cool. She has scales on her skin in this movie. She didn't have scales in the comics, so she did. But Fox and Mystique invented this like thing where Mystique has scales, blue scales on her skin, and has kind of made its way in some appearance of the comics since, depending on whatever X-Men you read of. If, like, for example, the Ultimate Comics had scales on Mystique's skin too, like this, but this one was the first one to do it. Besides, make her clothesless. And I really thought the person who played Mystique was very mysterious and intimidating in the role of Mystique. Besides sexy, and her performance alone makes me want to give that a 10 out of 10. Now, Magneto, I'll talk about. Magneto has this look. I gotta admit, I do like how in X-Men 2 United, um, is when they point out that Magneto's look is actually a ridiculous looking helmet. It was a ridiculous costume in X-Men 2 United. I like how they point out poke fun of his X-Men costume, but like they don't do that in the first one. So I do like how they don't poke fun of his costume in the first one, because I think it'll be cringe. So you wait for that in the sequel to poke fun of the characters' costumes. I think they should wait for the sequel to poke fun of the characters' costumes, the X-Men. When the sequel came around, like they did with the Magneto character for his second outing, is what they should do with the second X-Men outing, is when they should have poked fun of the X-Men comic. Is when they should have poked fun the X-Men costumes that they wear for the Fox universe while poking fun of the comic books for the second comic book outing of X-Men instead of the first outing. Because the first outing, I think doing that joke was pretty risky. Because it's almost like saying, hey everyone, this is a comic book movie, not a realistic take on the X-Men, and not just a realistic take on the X-Men. And please buy our movies tickets. Scenario it comes across joke. So that's what the joke comes across, you know. To me, when they did that punchline in the first X-Men movie from 2000, followed by Cyclops, when he explains when he says, like, when the X-Men character Wolverine joins the X-Men and suits up, and he says, you actually go out in these? And he says, what were you expecting? Yellow jumpsuits? And that's what the X-Men were in the debut comic. First early issues of the X-Men run. So, you know, you could have gone with those, but instead you went with that in First Class X-Men run. X-Men reimagining that just also connected to this X-Men run, the original X-Men trilogy. Oh, you probably didn't, guys. Some of you probably didn't know that, right? Who didn't watch the X-Men Days of Future Past movie? Yeah, let's explain that movie, that those X-Men are the same X-Men from the past, but younger versions of them from the same timeline, from the Fox timeline. Yet and it's kind of funny how in the earlier days, from First Class, they went with the yellow jumpsuits. But in the later days, they went for the black suit jumpsuits. This is kind of, think about that logic right now. You went from something more comic book looking to less comic book looking for a realistic take. It's almost like they could have gone with the comic book look the whole time was the realistic take, a mature take. All they want to do was the X-Men. And it could have worked. Because they did it in First Class, it worked, and people accepted it and didn't mind it. Seemed to mind it. People seem to like First Class. So why do you think they didn't like it as much when they did it in Dark Phoenix? My guess is because by the end of X-Men Apocalypse, as it was teased at the end, they were going to move towards the era where the Fox X-Men wear more of their signature costume from X-Men the Animated Series era. And the ones who joined the X-Men in the X-Men ending of Apocalypse. So, but then they shot themselves in the foot when they kind of reboot everything with Dark Phoenix and change the whole aesthetic design to what X-Men Apocalypse set up was the X-Men. That's like, we're going to give you them what you guys are giving you. Expected the goods in the sequel to X-Men Apocalypse that we're going to tease. And then we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot with Dark Phoenix to destroy your expectations. Oh, that's funny. See, we could have gone the real proper sequel to X-Men Apocalypse, but then Bryan Singer got fired let go from the studio, and then we got the different director for X-Men Dark Phoenix. So that's why we had the scrapped everything from Bryan Singer's vision that was supposed to pay off a more comic book portrayal, ecstatic looking for X sequels, whatever they want to do with X-Men Apocalypse. So we were going to get an X-Men sequel with a comic book version of the X-Men's I wanted, where's their costume that I knew from certain ones from the X-Men they said they want to do comic book versions of those costumes, but realistic, but like it was like, but it's like kind of like what they did with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Deadpool Wolverine movie, but we never got that movie that X-Men Apocalypse set up at the end. We got Dark Phoenix, and my blood pressure is bringing up Dark Phoenix, making me mad. Because this reminds me how much it all, what X-Men Apocalypse set up is why I loved it so much, and was continually the last decent X-Men movie I could like, that I didn't walk away absolutely pissed off, but looking forward to the sequel. Because I like what the sequel was setting up with the X-Men aesthetic look, Oh God, I'm going to get it the good, and then you get same. Not you get like different era, and when you get to Dark Phoenix, because they're wearing different the costumes, and takes place much later than a different era than X-Men Apocalypse. It takes place in a different decade. I guess so. And the director said on record in an interview, or the writer, one of the people that worked on the movies of X-Men Dark Phoenix, their goal was to make it as separate, as detached away from X-Men Apocalypse as much as possible, the story. That is stupid. Cool. So yeah, I give X-Men 2000 a 8 out of 10 because it feels like a rush about fun comic book movie like Batman Forever. Or The Dark Knight Rises from 2012, or Dark Knight from 2008. That's why I like X-Men movie from 2000, and why I give it 8 out of 10. Now I'm going to save my review for Dark Phoenix and the other X-Men movies I mentioned in this video. My review for the other I'm going to review the other X-Men movies in future videos, some other time, some other night, other day. Bye-bye. Good night. It's nighttime where I am. And subscribe. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the comment section. Tell me if you've seen this movie, X-Men, from 2000. And what you think of it. Let me know. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up, like this video. Please grow my subscribers. I'm Jake Allen Graham. That's my review on X-Men from 2000 movie. I give it 8 out of 10. Liked it for what it was. A very fun mess of a movie. Still very good though to watch. Watching this feels like a nice brain massage on your brain. It's relaxing to watch of a movie. Besides entertaining, but visually on the eyes, it's relaxing and interesting. And I like the visuals in this movie, and I like the characters in the movie, the bad guys, the good guys, and the human characters that interact with the X-Men, like Senate Killer that gets killed off. And interesting, I wasn't expecting him to get killed off, because He's a regular recurring character in X-Men the Animated Series and also X-Men 97 sequel show to X-Men the Animated Series. Senator Kelly, who works with the X-Men. One of the human resident characters who works with the X-Men. So I was thinking they were hinting on him working with the X-Men at the end and becoming a president, like the comics. But no, they just killed him off, the fucker. I felt bad for him as character at the end, you know? And I felt bad for his character. He just killed him off. I thought it was kind of cruel. And kind of fucked me up in the head as a kid watching that scene when they killed off that character. Kind of scarred me like when they killed off Optimus Prime in the first Transformers movie. Kind of messed me up a little. It made me more mature in the head, but maybe see the ugly side of life, basically. When I say fucked me up in the head. A little, as a kid. Made me realize that life is cruel and harsh, full of death. Like this scene, isn't it? It makes me go to those thoughts as a kid. When I see shit like that in my entertainment movies or shows. Now, I don't know if that's just me that felt that way when they killed off Senator Kelly. Who was the Kelly outside of the first X-Men movie, the character in the first X-Men movie that died. So yeah, I thought this movie was fine for what it was, and I thought it was kind of ironic and stupid how Magneto didn't see that the whole turning humans into mutants will inevitably kill them because it's unstable, unnatural mutation. What he's doing, splicing mutant DNA with human DNA, and which leads them to the demise. All of the humans that weren't naturally meant to be mutants, that's the side effect. The 100% side effect that Kelly sees that from the X-Men happening point of view. And so that's why they got to stop Magneto before he kills everybody. Well, half of the population is human population, half is mutant population, just kills half population. But that's a lot. So the X-Men has to put a stop to his plan, his flawed plan for peace between humans and mutants. But it's just so, because that's not the way to just kill everybody. And Magneto seems to be not surprised that Kelly died. And so almost like he kind of knows the side effect of the human's face. And it's okay with it. Because it doesn't seem like surprised that Kelly died from the mutation. Or just doesn't care. I'm not really sure. But when he says, "Are you sure what you saw? Whatever happened was real?" Or something like that. He's like, it was kind of a little confusing. I felt like that was a little confusing, monologuing like that. And how he delivered that line. I mean... and then Wolverine says he's full of shit. So, yeah. This is, so, I'm not really sure, if Magneto knew or not about this inevitable demise of the human race with this effective invention in the content of the movie X-Men ending. I'm still confused on that. I thought he was a one-dimensional villain that they were going to go for in the first X-Men movie. Then they got to X-Men 2 where they made him more complex, sympathetic villain instead of a one-dimensional villain, and building upon it. And the X-Men 2, X-Men United, which is kind of a course correction, a more faithful representation of Magneto from the comics, but seems like a very different, out-of-nowhere direction course to change the course of where they were going from before. Making one-dimensional villain to a more complex, sympathetic villain whose besides best friend was Charles. And I I'm sorry. X-Men 2 United is a weird sequel, but I love it anyway. So mixed bag, but it's a guilty pleasure in my eye. One of the worthy sequels that does not get sick of rewatching in my book. For X-Men 2 United. I'm reviewing X-Men 2 United now. I give X-Men 2 United a 8 out of 10. I give X-Men 2 a night for being, in some ways, being as good as the first one. And I like how we got the origin story with Wolverine's of how he got of his experiment mutation with the claws, and how he got his claws and the adamantium bones in his bone structure. I love how they showed that in the movie and the who created him. I love how they realistic take on that character. With what they did with Hugh Jackman's character, the realistic take on Wolverine's origin that they worked with was the realistic take on the aesthetic designs, but they took the origin from the comics, but was the Weapon X program and stuff, but took more realistic aesthetic designs for that story of origin story of Weapon X being of him used to be Weapon X. And I thought it was very clever how they did it, but I felt kind of rushed at times. Like not that part, but the stuff with the X-Men, his X-Men, him and the X-Men are kind of absent from each other for good reasons, because majority of half of the movie he's babysitting the junior X-Men's that live in the school by the students. They have not the X-Men are on a mission to try and recruit Nightcrawler, who what to see if he's like this, or they recruit Nightcrawler after they find out Nightcrawler's house was being controlled by somebody, and we find out that was Colonel Stryker, who behind the Weapon X program that Wolverine was a part of, and became Weapon X in the events of X-Men 2 United. It's explained Wolverine's backstory and his origin story and who he, but also like it's also left with enough mystery to you're not really sure how much is true or how much is bullshit of the type of person he used to be that Colonel Stryker said. Like he could be a different person, or he could be the same person, or a worse person. So we're not really sure what kind of person Wolverine was before he became Weapon X. So I like how it leads to a vague. It kind of reveals some truths, but also reveals some false truths, because Stryker won't give Wolverine the answers he wants of who he used to be and what his name was, besides his name, and won't give anything about his past before who he was before the Weapon X. He kind of just makes a vague explanation, and then tells Wolverine he's a survivor. And right after telling he's just nothing but an animal, so he finds out that Stryker's a little full of shit, not going to give him the answers. So he gets that answers about the Weapon X program, but about his claws and location, but it doesn't really give him answers who he was. But he seems to. But he basically, but in the content of the story, he basically, if he doesn't find answers of who he was, he basically finds peace with what he's got is the X-Men, and the home that he has was the X-Men his team. So I like that how that's resolved in X2 after it was open from representation with X1. Was how his relationship with the X-Men is, he's a team player or not. So, and with him finding his peace being with his team being X-Men, and stop looking forward for the past of who he used to be. So, and I thought that was cool. And I give X-Men 2 United, 10, not a 10 out of 10, 8 out of 10. I like X-Men 2 a little more, or X-Men 1 a little more. I'm not sure. They both have their pros and cons. Like with how they treated the characters from the comics. On a story-based level and except level, and how they rushed kind of stuff, some characters on the main X-Men team. So, I give this movie an 8 out of 10. The first two X-Men movies. I liked them for what they were. Very good, yet very flawed, fun comic book, realistic, aesthetic takes on the characters. I enjoyed by Fox Studios. And as much as I enjoy the extent from the comic look more than what the realistic designs were for the movies. So, bite me. But I think the comic looks are better. And that's why I give the X-Men, first two X-Men movies are mainly a 8 out of 10, mostly. Because the comic the aesthetic, as much as I like the aesthetic for what they were, I prefer the comic aesthetic looks over the realistic aesthetic look. Sorry. And, I probably would have liked the movies more if they went for the comic aesthetic looks, for the X-Men. That's just how I feel. But I like the mature tones he took with the stories and trying to flesh out the characters of Wolverine and the X-Men, and the students were good doing that, but they had they could have done better. But they were good for what they were, even though they kind of rushed the stories of X-Men 1 and 2, I thought. With some ideas, so, and that's what I think of the first two X-Men movies, X-Men and X-Men United. That's why I give X-Men United and X-Men 1 from 2000. X-Men United came out in 2003, I think, a few years after X-Men 1. X-Men 2 United and X-Men 1 get a 8 out of 10 from me, in my book. They're fun, flawed movies, but good for what they were. Fun movies. Sci-fi movies, takes on the X-Men, that more realistic takes on the X-Men and kind of cuts out some of the fun and some creativity, fantasy elements from the comics, from the source material, and kind of like takes a more realistic approach, looking at look to the approach of comics design of the X-Men, the world building and logic and the aesthetic for the cost with the costumes and stuff, and the world building logic and what the X-Men mean to within the world of the X-Men Fox universe, because I guess the Fox universe wanted to cover the earlier days of the X-Men before the X-Men went before the X-Men went worldwide to the public and people knew about the X-Men, because in the first X-Men 2 X-Men movies, the public doesn't know about the X-Men at all. Really, they stay in the shadows and save people. They stay in the shadows in the public, and the public's not aware of the X-Men at all. Not even at the end of events after you visit the president, because that stays secret, that meeting, and was the X-Men and the president at the end of X2. So X-Men don't really become the heroes you know and love from the comics or the EMA series. They don't really play the hero roles where they're known for their actions. either loved or hated for their heroic actions, and some are just dickheads not because they're humans and they're afraid of the X-Men because they're mutants, even though they have done nothing but done the best to benefit humanity and everybody with their powers. And you don't really see that side of the X-Men in the first two X-Men movie with the team because they stay in the shadows. With the original trilogy, and even the third installment kept that X-Men. Even the except for the third installment, I think. Except for the third installment, the first two X-Men movies have shadow figures. Nobody really knows about them, and nobody really knows that they weren't with mutants in the first X-Men movie, and then you get to X-Men 3 Last Stand, and it's kind of feels like we missed a few decades because by the time X-Men 3 happens, we have Beast working with the government and the president of the United States interacting with politics and working to do their best working as best with humans to peacefully with politicians, with humans, and it's like, when did this happen? When did the X-Men and now and yet I'm not really sure in the events of even in the events, it's not until the end of X-Men Last Stand where it's clear that where it's clear that people are talking about mutants on. I'm not really, even at the end of X-Men Last Stand, I'm still not really sure if people are aware of the X-Men. Of the X-Men being the heroes, and I'm not really sure. Because I know the third one had a different director. But this is my review on X-Men 3 Last Stand. I give it an 8 out of 10. I know this one had a different director, so it has also a different tone than the first two ones. It felt like it was trying to course correct the tone of the first two X-Men movie, but it does that with killing off the main leader, Cyclops, that was set up to be the leader of the X-Men, and in the first two X-Men movies, and they killed him off. But when they resurrect Jean Grey as the Phoenix, and her ex-personality is taken over by the Phoenix, his personality is taken over by the Phoenix, and for pretty much, Phoenix kills Scott and Cyclops, and then it's kind of strange and out of nowhere because it seems like they were doing more effort into trying to humanize Cyclops this time and make him more complex, tragic character, and that's but then they kill him off, and it's just weird. I thought of a decision making. But here, the reason why that happened is because due to the events of Superman Returns coming out the same year, that was part of a rewrites. That was kind of a afterthought of them killing off Cyclops. Have one of reshots, or because I get cut in the movies and killed off in the movie. I thought I hear something like that on YouTube. I found that on YouTube. That news on YouTube somewhere. I don't remember exactly where on YouTube. One of these YouTube videos I watch. And so anyway, I thought that was a strange decision making. This is why I thought it was a strange decision to make Eric abandon Mystique after she's turned human, and I thought it was stupid to turn her human in the movie and have her exit the movie just like that from being Mystique or being a recurring character in the movie. I thought it was stupid. Everything. And I thought like it was like stupid how there was even less attention to details with the interactions between Wolverine and the X-Men compared to the first two ones. Not that it was perfect, but it was more closer than what X-Men 3 tried to show was the X-Men interaction with the X-Men. But I can't help but feel like that the character arc that Wolverine go through in X-Men 3 feels forced and out of left field and out of nowhere. Not this, but not the part of him having feelings for Jean Grey. No. I'm talking about the part that him going from being a team player from not being a team player in the movie of X-Men: The Last Stand events that he goes through act in the third X-Men movie. In the original X-Men trilogy. He goes through it kind of feels like he goes through a reset. It feels like he goes through the same character arc he went through in the first two X-Men movies that were spread out in the first two ones. So, and him being a team player and finding peace, learning to be at peace with the X-Men, just feels like another thing he was resolved and thought that was resolved in the first two X-Men movie of the end of X-Men 2 United. That's why he threw away the dog tags and gave it to his maker and let him rot. Attached to the helicopter, he let him be attached to leave him to his demise. With all Flood playing the plays at his headquarters, in the content of the X-Men 2 movie, X-Men United. I guess I was looking too deep into this movie. But, yeah, that's just why I give the X-Men Last Stand an 8 out of 10. I liked it for what it was. The first X-Men trilogy, which Hugh Jackman gives an 8 out of 10. That's my review on X-Men original trilogy by Fox. Why it gets an 8 out of 10. Good night. Subscribe to my content. And hit the comments below to let me know which of this video and if I went on too long, and which of any of these X-Men movies I reviewed in this trilogy of X-Men. Which are the first 3 X-Men movies. And goodbye. Good night. I'm Jake Allen Graham, and I enjoyed making this video for you guys. And subscribe, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and goodbye.